Every morning, Emma checked her mailbox before leaving for work. Bills, advertisements, and sometimes nothing at all. It was just another ordinary day, until she noticed a single cream-colored envelope lying at the bottom. There was no stamp, no return address, only her name, written neatly in blue ink. Confused, she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, it means I kept my promise." Her heart skipped a beat. At the bottom of the page was the sender's name, Michael Carter. Emma froze. That was impossible. Michael Carter had died 20 years ago. So, who had written the letter? And why was it addressed to her? Emma Parker was 26 years old and lived alone in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. She worked as a librarian at the local public library, where every day was almost the same. Shelving books, helping visitors, and enjoying the peaceful silence had become part of her routine. Emma wasn't the kind of person who believed in ghosts, curses, or supernatural stories. She trusted facts, logic, and common sense. If something couldn't be explained, she believed there was always a reasonable answer waiting to be found. After losing her parents in a car accident when she was just 6 years old, Emma had been raised by her grandmother, Margaret. She had grown up hearing countless family stories, but no one had ever mentioned a man named Michael Carter. As she drove to work that morning, the strange letter kept replaying in her mind. The elegant handwriting, the mysterious message, and most of all, the signature. Michael Carter. Someone must be playing a joke, she whispered to herself, trying to convince her racing thoughts. During lunch, she showed the letter to her closest friend and coworker, Lisa. Lisa read it carefully before laughing. "Come on, Emma. Someone's pulling a prank. Maybe one of the college students. You know how people love making fake mystery stories these days." Emma forced a smile. "You're probably right, but something about the letter felt different. The paper looked old, the ink had slightly faded, and the handwriting didn't seem like something written yesterday." That evening, after returning home, Emma searched online for the name Michael Carter. Hundreds of results appeared. She almost closed the browser, until one old newspaper article caught her attention. Local school teacher Michael Carter dies in house fire, October 14th, 20 years ago. Emma stared at the black and white photograph beside the article. The name on the letter, the name in the newspaper, they were the same. A chill ran down her spine. If Michael Carter had really died 20 years ago, who had placed his letter in her mailbox yesterday? Emma barely slept that night. The newspaper article kept replaying in her mind. Every logical explanation she came up with seemed to fall apart. Someone had to be behind this. But who? And why? The next morning, she opened her front door with one thought in mind. Please don't let there be another letter. But there it was. Another cream-colored envelope rested quietly inside her mailbox. No stamp, no return address, only her name, written in the exact same elegant handwriting. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. She hurried inside, locked the door, and carefully unfolded the letter. "Dear Emma, you still sleep with the bedroom window slightly open, even during winter. You say it's because you like the sound of the wind. But the truth is, you're still afraid of complete silence." Emma's face turned pale. She had never told anyone that. Not her coworkers, not her neighbors, not even Lisa. It was a habit she'd had since childhood. She kept reading. Every Sunday, you visit the old oak tree in Greenwood Park. You believe no one notices, but you've been going there every year since you were 7. Emma dropped the letter onto the table. Her breathing became shallow. The old oak tree. That was her secret place. It was where her grandmother used to take her after her parents died. She had never posted about it online. She had never told anyone. The next sentence made her heart stop. "Tomorrow morning, look beneath the loose floorboard in your grandmother's attic. You'll find something she wanted you to have." Emma frowned. Her grandmother's attic? There wasn't any loose floorboard. At least, not that she knew of. Convinced someone was stalking her, Emma installed a security camera facing the mailbox before going to bed. She checked the recordings the following morning. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the camera flickered for just 2 seconds. When the picture returned, the mailbox was closed. At 7 a.m., Emma walked outside. Another letter was already waiting for her. No one had appeared on the recording. No footsteps. No car. No shadow. Just another envelope, as if it had arrived from nowhere. Emma knew she had two choices. She could throw the letters away and pretend none of this had happened, or she could uncover the truth, no matter how strange it became. She chose the second. The following morning, she took the newspaper clipping and the letters to the city archives. The old brick building held decades of newspapers, census records, and property files. If Michael Carter had lived in the town, there had to be more information about him. The elderly archivist adjusted his glasses as Emma showed him the article. Michael Carter, he murmured. I haven't heard that name in years. He disappeared into a storage room and returned carrying several dusty folders. He was a schoolteacher, the archivist said. Everyone respected him. Quiet man. Never married. Lived alone in the old Carter house near Maple Street. Emma carefully turned each yellowed page. School records, newspaper interviews, community awards. Everything described Michael Carter as an honest, kind man. Then one report caught her attention. House destroyed by fire. Cause unknown. According to the report, firefighters found Michael's body inside the house. The investigation had been closed within a week. Was there any family? Emma asked. The archivist slowly shook his head. None that anyone knew about. Yet something about that answer didn't feel complete. Leaving the archives, Emma drove to Maple Street. The Carter house was gone. Only an empty lot remained, surrounded by wild grass and a rusted iron fence. Across the street sat a small white house where an elderly woman was watering flowers. Emma introduced herself and politely asked if she remembered Michael Carter. The woman's expression changed immediately. Remember him, she whispered. Some people still refuse to say his name. Emma felt a chill. Why? The woman looked around, as if making sure no one else was listening. Because the official story was never the real story. Emma's heart began to race. The woman invited her inside. Over a cup of tea, she pointed toward an old framed photograph hanging on the wall. It showed a neighborhood picnic from more than 20 years earlier. That's Michael, she said, pointing to a smiling young man standing near the back. Emma leaned closer. Beside Michael stood a little girl. She looked no older than 6. Emma froze. The girl looked exactly like her. Who is that child? Emma asked, barely able to speak. The elderly woman frowned. I don't know her name, but Michael cared about her very much. He used to meet her every weekend in Greenwood Park. Greenwood Park. Emma's breath caught. That was the same park mentioned in the second letter. Before leaving, the woman said something Emma couldn't stop thinking about. The fire happened only a few days after that little girl suddenly disappeared. After that, Michael was never the same. Emma drove straight to her grandmother's old house. The third letter had mentioned a loose floorboard in the attic. She climbed the narrow wooden stairs and searched every corner. Just as she was about to give up, one floorboard shifted beneath her foot. Kneeling down, she carefully lifted it. Hidden underneath was a small tin box wrapped in an old cloth. Inside were faded photographs, newspaper clippings, and a single birth certificate. Emma unfolded it slowly. Her hands began to shake. The document listed her name, but the section for father was blank. And beneath mother, someone had crossed out the original name with black ink. Tucked inside the box was one final note, written in her grandmother's handwriting. Emma, if you've found this, someone has finally decided to tell you the truth. Emma stared at her grandmother's note, unable to process what she had just read. Someone had crossed out her mother's name on her birth certificate. But why? And who had done it? Before she could think any further, she remembered another name hidden among the documents inside the tin box. St. Mary's Children's Home. The next morning, Emma drove there with the faded birth certificate and the mysterious letters. The orphanage had long since been converted into a community center, but its basement still stored decades of old records. An elderly nun named Sister Catherine agreed to help. She carefully examined the birth certificate before looking at Emma with surprise. I've seen this document before, she whispered. Emma's heart skipped a beat. You knew my mother? Sister Catherine nodded slowly. Yes, and I knew Michael Carter too. Emma felt the room spin. What did you say? Michael wasn't just a schoolteacher. He volunteered here every weekend. He spent his free time reading stories to abandoned children. Emma struggled to breathe. How did he know my mother? Sister Catherine walked to an old cabinet and unlocked a wooden drawer. Inside were dozens of photographs. She pulled out one faded picture and handed it to Emma. Emma froze. Standing beside Michael Carter was a young woman with a warm smile. Emma recognized her immediately. It was her mother. They weren't strangers. They looked like close friends. The back of the photograph contained a handwritten message. For Michael, thank you for protecting us when no one else would. The message was signed with her mother's name. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Her entire life, she had believed Michael Carter was a complete stranger. But he had known her mother. Not only that, he had promised to protect both of them. Sister Catherine took a deep breath before revealing one final piece of the puzzle. The night before Michael died, your mother came here crying. Emma leaned forward. Why? The elderly nun lowered her voice. Because she told Michael someone was trying to erase your family's past. Emma's heartbeat echoed in her ears. Who? Sister Catherine slowly shook her head. She never told me the name, but she believed that if anything happened to her, Michael would make sure you learned the truth. Emma left St. Mary's Community Center with more questions than answers. Michael Carter had known her mother. He had promised to protect them, but one question still haunted her. If Michael died 20 years ago, who had been delivering the letters? Determined to find the answer, Emma returned to the city archives. This time, she asked for Michael Carter's legal records instead of newspaper files. After nearly 2 hours of searching, the archivist placed a thin folder on the table. This is everything we have, he said. Most of the documents were ordinary. Property records, insurance papers, tax filings. Then Emma noticed a sealed envelope attached to the last page. It had never been opened. The archivist frowned. That's strange. It wasn't supposed to be here. Across the front, a handwritten note read, to be opened only if someone asks about my letters. Emma's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper inside. It was a signed statement from Michael Carter. If you are reading this, then Emma has begun searching for the truth. 20 years ago, I prepared a series of letters for her. Each letter was written before my death and entrusted to someone I trusted completely. They were never meant to be delivered all at once. Each one was to be given only when the time was right. Emma could barely breathe. She continued reading. The truth is dangerous. Emma must learn it one piece at a time. If she discovers everything too soon, innocent people may suffer. At the bottom of the page was Michael's signature. The ink had faded with age. The paper itself was brittle. There was no doubt. It had been written decades earlier. Emma looked up at the archivist. Who was supposed to deliver them? He slowly shook his head. There isn't a name in the file. Someone had to know. Apparently, only one person. Emma left the archives and rushed home. Waiting inside her mailbox was another cream-colored envelope. She didn't hesitate this time. She tore it open. Inside was a short message. Emma, if this letter has reached you, then my friend has kept his promise for 20 years. Her eyes moved to the final line. The person delivering these letters has been standing much closer than you realize. Emma slowly looked up from the page. Across the street, someone was watching her. By the time she ran outside, the stranger had disappeared. Emma couldn't stop thinking about the last sentence. The person delivering these letters has been standing much closer than you realize. She searched her mind over and over. Who could have protected Michael's promise for 20 years? Then she remembered something the elderly neighbor had mentioned. Michael spent every weekend at Greenwood Park. Greenwood Park, the old oak tree. The place her grandmother had taken her every Sunday since she was 7. As the sun began to set, Emma drove there one last time. The ancient oak tree stood exactly as it always had, its enormous branches casting long shadows across the empty park. She slowly walked toward it. Something caught her attention. At the base of the tree was a small bronze plaque she had somehow never noticed before. It read, "Promises never die." Beneath the plaque was a tiny keyhole. Emma reached into her pocket. Inside the previous letter had been an old brass key taped to the back of the envelope. Without thinking, she inserted it. Click. A section of the tree's wooden base quietly shifted open. Hidden inside was a weathered metal box, carefully wrapped in waterproof cloth. Her hands trembled as she lifted it out. Inside were dozens of photographs, newspaper articles, her mother's diary, and one final envelope. Unlike the others, it was sealed with dark red wax. Across the front, in Michael Carter's handwriting, were the words, "To Emma, when you are finally ready." Fighting back tears, she opened it. The final letter began, "Dear Emma, if this letter has reached you, then I have kept the promise I made to your mother. 20 years ago, she came to me terrified. She had uncovered the truth about a powerful man who destroyed innocent lives to protect his fortune. She knew they would come after her, and eventually they did. The fire that everyone called an accident wasn't an accident at all. It was meant for both of us. Your mother begged me to protect you if anything happened to her. I couldn't save her, but I could save you. Before I died, I wrote these letters and asked the only person I completely trusted to deliver them when you were old enough to understand. If you're reading this today, you've survived, and now you know the truth. Don't waste your life seeking revenge. Live the life your mother wanted for you. That will be our victory." Emma lowered the letter. Tears streamed down her face. For 20 years, a man she had never truly known had kept a promise that had cost him his own life. In that moment, the mystery that had haunted her for weeks was finally over. But the love, loyalty, and sacrifice behind those letters would stay with her forever. A week later, Emma stood once again beneath the old oak tree in Greenwood Park. The metal box, the photographs, and Michael Carter's final letter had answered every question that had haunted her. The mysterious letters were never a ghost's message. They were a promise made by a man who knew his own life was about to end. A promise faithfully kept for 20 long years by someone who refused to let the truth disappear. After carefully reading her mother's diary, Emma finally understood why her grandmother had protected her from the past. She hadn't been hiding the truth out of fear. She had been protecting the only family she had left. Emma decided not to spend her life chasing revenge. Instead, she honored both her mother and Michael Carter by exposing the truth through legal channels, allowing the authorities to reopen the forgotten case with the evidence she had discovered. The people responsible could no longer hide behind lies. For the first time in 20 years, Michael Carter's name was cleared. He was no longer remembered as a man who died in a tragic fire. He was remembered as a man who sacrificed everything to keep a promise. Emma visited his grave, carrying a single white lily. She gently placed Michael's final letter beside the headstone. "Thank you," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "You didn't just protect my life. You gave me back my family's truth." As she turned to leave, a gentle breeze lifted the leaves around the cemetery. Emma smiled through her tears. For the first time since receiving that impossible letter, her heart felt at peace. Some promises outlive the people who make them. Some truths wait years to be discovered. And sometimes, a letter written 20 years ago can change a person's life forever. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions, your favorite moment, or even your own story in the comments below.